The Great Chamber had not seen so many beings gathered in one place for nearly 3,000 years. Representatives from 47 different alien civilizations sat in their designated areas, each one watching the others with careful eyes. Some floated in special containers filled with the gases they needed to breathe. Others rested on platforms designed for their unusual body shapes. A few existed only as patterns of light, their physical forms left behind long ago. High Arbiter Velthus stood at the center of the chamber. His body was made of living crystal, and when light passed through him, it broke into beautiful rainbow patterns on the walls. He struck an ancient bell made from metal found on a dead world, and the sound brought silence to the massive room. "We have come together to discuss a matter of great importance," Velthus announced. His voice did not travel through the air like normal sound. Instead, it appeared directly in the minds of every being present, translated instantly into their own languages. The species, known as humans. They come from a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star in the outer regions of the galaxy. Ambassador Kryn of the Velthari Dominion rose from her seat. She was tall and thin, covered in scales that changed color with her mood. Right now, they were a worried shade of orange. These humans have only possessed the ability to travel faster than light for 70 of their years. Why should we care about such a young species? There are hundreds of others who developed space travel before them. Because, answered Fleet Commander Guranash of the Thracian Empire, these humans are not like other young species. He was massive, standing nearly 3 meters tall. His body covered in thick armored plates that had evolved over millions of years of warfare. His voice was deep and rumbling, like stones grinding together. In just 70 years, they have spread to 43 star systems. They build weapons that make our military experts nervous. And they refuse to follow the rules that have kept peace in this galaxy for thousands of years. A wave of worried sounds passed through the chamber. Every species present knew the rules. The Conclave had created them long ago to prevent the terrible wars that had once torn the galaxy apart. New species were supposed to request permission before expanding. They were supposed to accept limits on their weapons. They were supposed to recognize that the older civilizations had wisdom worth respecting. Humans had ignored all of these expectations. Ambassador Era of the communion of minds drifted forward. She was not a single being, but a collective of thousands of minds sharing one glowing cloud of particles. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We have watched the humans for many years. They are strange creatures, full of contradictions. They can show great love and kindness, but they can also be terribly cruel. They build beautiful things and then destroy them. They help strangers and then hurt their own families. We do not understand them." Guranash slammed his armored fist against his platform, making a sound like thunder. "Understanding them is not necessary. What matters is that they are dangerous. Every year, they grow stronger. Every year, they expand further. If we wait too long, they will become impossible to stop. I say we strike now, while our combined forces can still defeat them with acceptable losses." "Acceptable losses?" repeated Elder Sooth of the Harmony Coalition. His body was made of water somehow held in a shape that resembled a person, though he had no solid form at all. His voice was soft and flowing, like a gentle stream. "How many billions would die in such a war? How many worlds would burn? We have done this before, Guranash. We have destroyed species because we feared what they might become. And every time, we have looked back with shame. It's better shame than extinction," Guranash replied. High Arbiter Velthus raised one of his crystalline arms, calling for quiet. "We will hear from all who wish to speak. But first, let us hear from one who has actually lived among the humans. Ambassador Learvon of the Serenith spent 3 years on their homeworlds, studying them directly. Tell us what you learned." A delicate figure rose from her seat. Learvon was beautiful in a way that was hard to describe. Her silver skin seemed to glow with inner light, and her large dark eyes held an intelligence that went beyond simple thought. The Serenith were known throughout the galaxy for their ability to feel the emotions of others, to understand beings on a level that went deeper than words. "I lived in one of their cities," Learvon began, her voice gentle but clear. "A place called Austin. in a region they called Texas. For 3 years, I walked among them, ate their food, learned their customs, and felt their emotions. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Guranash is right that they are dangerous, but he does not understand why. Humans are not dangerous because they are evil. They are dangerous because they feel everything so deeply. When they love with their entire being. When they fear, that fear can drive them to terrible acts. When they hope, that hope can move mountains. Pretty words, Guranash growled. But what do they mean? Can they be trusted or not? I cannot answer that question simply, Lyravan replied, because there is no single answer. I met humans who would give their lives to protect strangers. I met humans who would kill for small amounts of money. I watched them help each other through disasters and then argue over meaningless differences. She turned to face the entire assembly. I watched a woman named Katie Martinez work 16 hours every day, caring for sick and dying people. She asked for nothing in return. She simply could not bear to see others suffer. I watched a man named Daniel Shaw give away most of his wealth to feed hungry children in places he would never visit. These were not leaders or heroes. They were ordinary humans, doing what they believed was right. The others? Kryn asked. The violent ones. The cruel ones? They exist as well, Lyravan admitted. But in my 3 years among them, I found that the good humans outnumbered the bad ones by far. Most humans want only to live peaceful lives, raise their children, and find small moments of happiness. They are not so different from us. Guranash made a sound of disgust. You have spent too long among them. You have lost your objectivity. The facts are clear. Their population is growing. Their military is expanding. Their technology is advancing faster than any species we have ever seen. If we do not act now, we will regret it. And if we do act, Elder Sooth replied, we may regret it even more. War is easy to start, but hard to end. And the humans, whatever their flaws, have shown a remarkable ability to survive. They may be young, but they are not weak. High Arbiter Vaelthus looked around the chamber at the gathered representatives. These were the most powerful beings in the galaxy, leaders of civilizations that had existed for millions of years. And yet, here they sat, uncertain about how to handle one small species from an unremarkable planet. We will continue this debate, he announced. But let us remember what is truly at stake. Not just the fate of humanity, but the soul of this conclave. The decisions we make here will define who we are for generations to come. Choose wisely. The chamber erupted into dozens of separate conversations as groups formed and arguments began. Somewhere far across the galaxy, 8 billion humans went about their daily lives, completely unaware that their entire future was being decided by beings they had never met. The debate was only beginning. While the aliens argued about their future, the humans continued living their ordinary lives. They woke up, went to work, ate meals with their families, and fell asleep without any idea that powerful beings in a distant part of the galaxy were deciding whether they should live or die. But some humans knew that something was happening. In the city of Chicago, Commander Lisa Hartley sat in her office on the 43rd floor of the United Earth Fleet headquarters. Through her window, she could see Lake Michigan stretching out to the horizon, its blue waters reflecting the afternoon sun. She was 42 years old, with short brown hair and tired eyes that had seen too much in her 20 years of military service. Her desk was covered with reports and data screens. But she was focused on one particular message that had arrived an hour ago from a deep space monitoring station. Something was happening at the nexus of voices. The ancient space station, where the alien conclave held their most important meetings. Lieutenant Ortiz, she called out. A young man appeared in her doorway. Kevin Ortiz was 28, eager, and one of the smartest intelligence analysts in the fleet. He was holding a cup of coffee in one hand and a tablet in the other. Ma'am, I have the full sensor analysis you requested, he said, setting the tablet on her desk. There are at least 200 alien vessels gathered near the Nexus. We've identified ships from the Thraken Empire, the Velthari Dominion, the Harmony Coalition, and at least 30 other civilizations. Lisa felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. The conclave hasn't gathered like this in thousands of years. What could be important enough to bring them all together? Kevin hesitated before answering. Our analysts believe they're discussing us, ma'am, humanity. Lisa had known this day might come. Ever since humans had discovered faster-than-light travel and begun spreading across the stars, they had bumped up against the older civilizations. There had been tensions, misunderstandings, a few minor conflicts that were quickly resolved, but the big powers had mostly ignored humanity. Treating them like children who would eventually learn their place, it seemed that time was over. "Get me Admiral Cho on a secure channel," Lisa ordered, "and contact Dr. Patterson at the Diplomatic Academy. We need our best minds working on this right now." 3 hours later, Lisa stood in a secure conference room with the most important military and diplomatic leaders on Earth. Admiral Grace Cho was there, a small woman in her 60s with white hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Dr. Nathan Patterson had arrived from the academy, a tall man with glasses who had spent his entire career studying alien psychology. Secretary of Defense Marcus Webb attended through a holographic connection from Washington, his face grim. "Let's be clear about the situation," Admiral Cho said, her voice calm but serious. "If the Conclave decides to move against us, we cannot win a conventional war. The Thraken alone have enough firepower to destroy every human ship in existence. Combined with their allies, they could reduce Earth to ash in a matter of days." The room fell silent. Everyone present had known this on some level, but hearing it stated so plainly made it feel terribly real. "What are our options?" Secretary Webb asked. Dr. Patterson leaned forward. "The Conclave is not a unified body. They argue among themselves constantly. They have factions that have been feuding for millions of years. If we can identify the members who are sympathetic to humanity and strengthen their position, we might be able to prevent a consensus for war." "How do we do that?" Lisa asked. "Someone has to go there," Patterson replied. "Someone has to speak for humanity. Show them who we really are. Not our weapons or our expansion plans, but our values, our potential, our humanity." Admiral Cho shook her head slowly. "Anyone we send would be walking into the heart of enemy territory. If the war faction wins, they would be captured or killed." "Then we send someone who understands that risk and accepts it anyway," Patterson said. "Someone who can speak with authority, but also with humility. Someone who represents the best of what humanity can be." Lisa thought about the 8 billion people on Earth and the millions more spread across their colonies. Parents and children, teachers and farmers, scientists and artists, all of them depending on decisions being made in rooms like this one. "I'll go," she heard herself say. Everyone turned to look at her. With respect, Commander Admiral Cho said, "You're a military officer. The Conclave might see that as a threat." "We don't send me alone," Lisa replied. "We send a delegation. Military, diplomatic, civilian. We show them the full range of who we are." Dr. Patterson nodded slowly. "That could work. But we would need the right people. People who can represent humanity honestly, including our flaws." Secretary Webb's holographic image flickered as he shifted in his seat. "This is a massive gamble. If it fails, we've sent some of our best people to their deaths and gain nothing." "If we do nothing," Lisa replied, "we gain nothing anyway. At least this way, we have a chance." The debate continued for several more hours, but in the end, they agreed to try. A small delegation would be assembled and sent to the Nexus of Voices. They would ask to address the Conclave, to speak for humanity, to make the case for peace. Lisa returned to her office as the sun was setting over the lake. The water had turned orange and gold, reflecting the dying light like liquid fire. She thought about her parents, retired now and living in a small town in Oregon. She thought about her sister and her 2 young nephews. She thought about all the ordinary people whose lives would be changed forever by what happened in the coming days. Her communicator beeped. It was Kevin Ortiz. "Ma'am, I've been reviewing the intelligence on the Conclave members. There's something you should see." "Go ahead." The Serenith ambassador Lyravon spent 3 years living on Earth before returning to her people. Our records show she lived in Austin, Texas. She had friends here, ma'am. People she cared about. Lisa felt a small spark of hope. You think she might be sympathetic to us? I think she knows us better than almost any other alien in that chamber. And from what I can tell, she didn't leave because she wanted to. She left because she was recalled. It was not much, but it was something. A single possible ally in a room full of beings who might vote to destroy everything humanity had ever built. Lisa looked out at the darkening sky, where the first stars were beginning to appear. Somewhere out there, among those distant points of light, the fate of her species was being decided. Start preparing the delegation, she said quietly. We leave as soon as possible. The debate in the conclave had been going on for 3 full days when the unexpected news arrived. A human ship had entered the system. It was small, carrying minimal weapons. It was requesting permission to speak to the assembly. High Arbiter Valethus called for silence as the announcement was made. The chamber erupted into chaos. Destroyed immediately, Fleet Commander Gurnash demanded. They have no right to be here. This is sovereign conclave territory. They came alone and unarmed, Ambassador Kryn argued. Destroying them would prove nothing, except that we are afraid of a single small ship. I say we hear them, Elder Sooth suggested. What harm can words do? And perhaps they will say something that helps us make our decision. The vote was close, but in the end, the conclave agreed to allow the human ship to dock. Gurnash protested loudly. But the majority had spoken. The human who walked into the great chamber was not what anyone expected. She was not a warrior or a politician. She was a 63-year-old woman with gray hair pulled back in a simple style and warm brown eyes that seemed to see everything. Her name was Dr. Patricia Santos, and she had spent her entire life studying alien cultures and trying to understand the vast diversity of civilizations in the galaxy. She walked alone to the center of the chamber, surrounded by beings who could end her existence with a single thought. Some of them towered over her. Others floated in the air or existed as shapes of pure energy. She was the smallest and weakest being in the room, and she knew it, but she smiled anyway. I thank you for allowing me to speak, she said. Her voice was calm and steady, carrying clearly through the massive space. I know that many of you believe humanity is a threat. You may be right. We are a dangerous species. We have done terrible things to each other and to our own planet. She paused, letting her words sink in. Gurnash leaned forward, clearly ready to use this admission against her. But I did not come here to deny our flaws, Patricia continued. I came here to tell you a story. A true story about my own family and what it taught me about who humans really are. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings so different from herself that they might as well have come from different universes. 200 years ago, my great-great-grandmother was born in a small village in the Philippines. She grew up in terrible poverty during a time when her country was occupied by foreign soldiers. She watched her family suffer. She saw friends killed for no reason. She experienced cruelty that most of you cannot imagine. Trisha's voice softened slightly, but remained clear. By all rights, she should have grown up filled with hatred and anger. She had every reason to want revenge against those who had hurt her people. Instead, she became a nurse. She dedicated her entire life to healing people, all people, regardless of who they were or where they came from. When the war ended, she treated her former enemies with the same care she showed her own family. She believed that every person, no matter what they had done, contained the possibility for good. Gurnash made a dismissive sound. A touching personal history. But what does one individual matter? We are discussing the fate of an entire species, not celebrating the virtues of your ancestor. Patricia nodded. You are right to ask that question. One person is just one person. But here's what I want you to understand. My great-great-grandmother was not special. She was not unique. There are millions of humans just like her, in every generation, in every country, in every walk of life. She turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. For every human who has committed terrible acts, there are 1,000 who have chosen kindness. For every war we have fought, there are 1,000,000 acts of quiet courage and compassion that will never be recorded in any history book. You look at us and see our weapons, Patricia continued. You see our expanding colonies and our growing military power. You fear what we might become. I understand that fear. But you are not seeing the whole picture. She pointed toward a random section of the chamber. You do not see the mother who works 3 jobs to give her children a better education. You do not see the stranger who stops on a busy road to help an injured animal. You do not see the volunteers who rebuild homes after natural disasters, asking nothing in return. You do not see the scientists who spend their lives searching for cures to diseases that kill millions. Her voice grew stronger. You see our capacity for destruction, and it frightens you. But you do not see our equal capacity for creation, for healing, for love. Elder Sooth moved forward, his watery form rippling with interest. You speak well, Dr. Santos, but words are easy. How can we know that humanity will choose the path of peace? How can we trust that you will not become the threat that Commander Gurinosh fears? Patricia met his gaze directly. You cannot know for certain. That is the true. They offer you? Humanity is not yet fully formed. We are still growing, still learning, still becoming who we will eventually be. I cannot promise you that we will never make mistakes. I cannot guarantee that every human will choose good over evil. She took a deep breath. What I can tell you is that we are trying. Every day, billions of humans wake up and try to be a little better than they were the day before. They try to be kinder, more patient, more understanding. They fail often, but they keep trying. We are asking you to give us a chance, Patricia said. Not because we have earned it, not because we deserve it, but because we might someday become worthy of it. We are asking you to judge us not by what we are, but by what we are struggling to become. The chamber was completely silent. Patricia stood alone in the center waiting. Ambassador Lyravon rose from her seat. Her silver skin glowed softly in the chamber's light, and her dark eyes were fixed on the human woman before her. I lived among your people, Lyravon said. I felt their emotions, their hopes, their fears. Dr. Santos speaks the truth. Humans are not saints. They are not perfect beings who have conquered their darker nature. But they are aware of that darkness, and they fight against it constantly. She looked at Gurinash. That struggle, that constant effort to be better, is something I have rarely seen in my centuries of life. Most species accept what they are and stop growing. Humans never stop. They are always reaching for something higher, even when they fall short. Gurinosh stood, his massive form casting shadows across the floor. Pretty words from both of you. But I have seen human weapons. I have read their military histories. I have studied their wars. They are the most violent species we have ever encountered. Giving them more time simply gives them more opportunity to become an unstoppable threat. Patricia looked up at the towering alien warrior. You are right that we are violent. Our history is full of bloodshed. But tell me, Commander, is yours any different? I have studied the histories of the Thrakan Empire. I know about the conquest of the 7 systems. I know about the purge of Velkar. Every species in this room has blood on their hands. Gurinosh's armored plates shifted with anger. We have evolved beyond such barbarity. So might we, Patricia replied, given time. Given the chance to learn from species like yours, who have walked this path before us. Given the opportunity to prove that we can be more than our worst moments. High Arbiter Valethus raised his crystalline arm. We have heard from the human representative. Now we must deliberate. Patricia nodded and stepped back. Whatever you decide, I thank you for listening. And I want you to know something. Even if you choose war, even if you decide that humanity must be destroyed, my great-great-grandmother would still believe that you have goodness in you. She would still offer you her compassion. That is who we are trying to be. She turned and walked back toward the exit, leaving the aliens to decide the fate of her species. The debate that followed, Patricia's speech was the most intense in the long history of the conclave. For 3 more days, the representatives argued, formed alliances, broke apart, and argued again. The fate of 8 billion humans hung in the balance, decided by beings who had never walked on Earth, never breathed its air, never seen a sunrise over its mountains, or a moonrise over its oceans. Fleet. Commander Gurinash led the faction that demanded immediate military action. He stood in the center of the chamber, his massive armored form projecting power and certainty. Every cycle we waste on debate, The humans grow stronger, he declared. Their scientists are developing new weapons. Their shipyards are building new fleets. Their colonies are spreading like a disease across the galaxy. I have shown you the projections. Within 200 years, they will rival the Thracian Empire in military strength. Within 500 years, they could challenge the entire conclave. He pointed toward the door where Patricia had exited. That woman spoke well. She touched your emotions with her stories about kindness and compassion. But emotions do not win wars. Facts do. And the facts tell us that humanity is a threat that will only grow more dangerous with time. Ambassador Kryn rose to respond. Her scales had shifted to a deep blue, reflecting her troubled mood. Commander Guranash speaks of facts, but he ignores the most important one. War with humanity would not be quick or easy. They are spread across 43 star systems. Their people are determined and resourceful. Even if we destroyed Earth itself, the survivors would scatter and rebuild. We would be fighting them for generations. Then we destroy them completely, Guranash replied. Every colony, every ship, every last human, wherever they hide. It would be costly, yes, but it would end the threat forever. A wave of uncomfortable silence passed through the chamber. Even many who feared humanity were not comfortable with the idea of total extermination. Elder Sooth floated forward, his watery form shimmering with emotion. Listen to what you are proposing, Guranash. You are talking about the complete destruction of an intelligent species. Billions of lives ended. A unique culture erased from existence. Children who have never harmed anyone, killed simply for the crime of being born human. War is never pretty, Guranash replied. But it is sometimes necessary, is it? Elder Sooth asked. Or is it simply easier? Easier than trying to understand them? Easier than risking that we might be wrong about their nature? Lyravon stood again, her silver form commanding attention. I would like to share something more about my time on Earth. Something that happened in a city called New Orleans. On the continent they call North America. The chamber gave her their attention. While I was living there, a terrible storm struck the city. The humans call such storms hurricanes. This one was one of the worst in their recorded history. Thousands of homes were destroyed. Hundreds of people died. The survivors were left with nothing. She paused, her voice carrying deep emotion. What happened next showed me who humans truly are. Within days, people from all over their planet began sending help. Money, food, clothing, medicine. Volunteers traveled thousands of kilometers to help strangers they had never met. People with nothing themselves gave what little they had to help others who had even less. I watched a man named Christopher Reyes, Lyravon continued. He was a carpenter from a small town in another part of the country. He closed his business, left his family, and drove for 2 days to reach New Orleans. He spent 3 months there building homes for people he would never see again. When I asked him why, he simply said that he could not bear to know that people were suffering when he had the ability to help. Guranash made a dismissive gesture. One man, one disaster. It proves nothing. But it was not one man, Lyravon replied. It was thousands, tens of thousands. They came from every part of their world. And this happens every time disaster strikes. Earthquakes, floods, fires, wars. Humans cannot see suffering without trying to help. It is built into their nature as deeply as their capacity for violence. Then they are contradictory, Guranash said. Unpredictable. Which makes them even more dangerous. Arbiter Velthus raised his crystalline arm. Perhaps we are approaching this question from the wrong angle. We keep asking whether humanity is good or evil, dangerous or safe. But these are not the right questions. The chamber fell silent as the ancient arbiter continued. Every species in this room has been both good and evil at various points in their history. The Thracian were once the most feared warriors in the galaxy, but now they are valued members of this conclave. The Velthari nearly destroyed themselves with biological weapons, but they survived and grew wiser. We have all made terrible mistakes and found ways to move beyond them. He looked around the chamber. The real question is not what humanity is today. The real question is what they might become with proper guidance. and whether we are wise enough to provide that guidance without resorting to violence. Ambassador Kryn leaned forward with interest. What are you suggesting, High Arbiter? I am suggesting a third option, Vaelthus replied. Not war and not isolation. Integration. We invite humanity to join the Conclave as full members, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. We embed observers in their society to guide them and learn from them. We create bonds of trade and culture that make war unthinkable for all parties. Guranosh's armored plates shifted with anger. You would give them a seat at this table? After barely 70 years of space travel, species have waited millions of years for that honor. Some of those species no longer exist, Elder Sooth replied, because we were too afraid to give them a chance. Because we destroyed them before they could prove what they might become. The debate continued for hours more. Factions formed and dissolved. Arguments were made and countered. Ancient grudges between species complicated the discussion in ways that had nothing to do with humanity at all. Finally, as the artificial lights of the station dimmed to simulate evening, High Arbiter Vaelthus called for a vote. The question before us is simple, he announced. Do we offer humanity membership in the Conclave, with a probationary period of 100 of their solar years? During this time, they would be subject to observation and certain restrictions on their expansion. If they prove worthy, they become full members. If they fail, we revisit the question of how to deal with them. And if they refuse, Guranosh demanded, then we will know their true intentions, Vaelthus replied. And the advocates for war will have their evidence. The voting was done through a complex system that weighted each civilization's voice according to their age, their power, and their stake in the outcome. Representatives indicated their positions through colored lights that appeared above their platforms. Green for integration, red for war, yellow for further debate. The lights began to appear across the chamber. Green, red, green, yellow, green, green. Patricia Santos, waiting alone in the small room where she had been taken after her speech, could not see the vote. She could only wait and hope that her words had made a difference. She thought about her daughter Mia, back on Earth, probably worried sick about her mother's crazy mission. She thought about her students, young people from 100 different backgrounds who came to her classes, hoping to understand the universe better. She thought about the billions of humans who had no idea their fate was being decided at this very moment. The lights continued to appear until every civilization had voted. High Arbiter. Vaelthus counted the results carefully, checking them twice to make sure there was no error. Then he struck the ancient bell again. The vote is complete, he announced. Patricia Santos sat alone in the small waiting room, staring at the strange alien walls that surrounded her. The material was something she could not identify, smooth and warm to the touch, glowing faintly with an inner light. She wondered if this would be the last room she ever saw. The door opened. An Elder Sooth flowed inside, his watery form moving gracefully across the floor. Patricia stood immediately, trying to read the alien's expression, but his liquid features revealed nothing. The vote is complete, Sooth announced. His voice was calm, giving away nothing about the result. Patricia felt her heart pounding in her chest. She had spent her entire life studying alien cultures, trying to build bridges between species that had nothing in common. And now, all of that work, all of that hope, came down to this single moment. By a margin of 3 votes, Sooth continued, the Conclave has chosen to offer humanity full membership. With a probationary period of 100% of your solar years, Keisha felt her knees weaken. She reached out to steady herself against the wall, tears forming in her eyes. We passed. They voted for peace. They voted to give you a chance, Sooth corrected gently. That is not quite the same thing. During the probationary period, you will be expected to demonstrate the values you spoke of in your address. There will be observers sent to live among your people. There will be restrictions on your military expansion. And there will be consequences if you fail to meet the standards expected of Conclave members. Patricia nodded, wiping her eyes. We understand. We accept all of it. Sooth moved closer, and Patricia had the strange sensation that he was studying her carefully. I want you to understand something, Dr. Santos. This decision was not made because the Conclave believes in humanity. Many of my colleagues still think you are a threat that will eventually need to be eliminated. They voted for integration only because they believe war would be too costly. I understand, Patricia said. Do you? Sooth asked. You have 100 years to change their minds. 100 years to prove that the beautiful picture you painted of humanity is more true than the violent picture. Commander Gurinash presented. If you fail, if humanity proves to be as dangerous as he believes, then everything we decided today will mean nothing. Patricia looked directly at the alien elder. Then we will not fail. Sooth made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been something else entirely. You speak with such confidence. I hope you are right. For your sake and for ours. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Patricia spent most of that time writing reports and recommendations for the leaders, who would need to implement the Conclave's requirements. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. There would be humans who resented the alien oversight, who saw the restrictions as an insult to human pride, who wanted to fight rather than cooperate, but there would also be those who understood. Those who saw this as humanity's greatest opportunity, a chance to learn from civilizations that had solved problems humans were still struggling with. Those who believed that peace, even a difficult peace, was better than war. When her ship finally entered Earth's solar system, Patricia stood at the viewport and watched the blue planet grow larger. She could see the familiar shapes of the continents, the swirling white patterns of clouds, the thin blue line of atmosphere that protected everything she loved. Her communicator beeped with an incoming message from Earth Defense Command. Unidentified vessel. Please identify yourself and state your business. Patricia smiled slightly. This is Dr. Patricia Santos, returning from the Nexus of Voices. I have important news for the people of Earth. There was a long pause. Everyone on Earth knew that she had gone to speak to the Conclave. Everyone had been waiting to hear what would happen. Dr. Santos, this is Commander Hartley. The whole world is watching. What do we tell them? Patricia thought about all the people down there on that blue marble. 8 billion lives hanging on her words. Parents holding their children. Young couples making plans for their futures. Old people looking back on lives well lived. All of them connected by the simple fact that they were human, that they shared this small planet in an enormous universe. Tell them we have work to do, Patricia said. Tell them the galaxy is watching us, waiting to see what kind of species we really are. Tell them that our children's children will be judged by what we do in the next 100 years. She paused, looking at the Earth growing larger in the viewport. And tell them I believe we can do it. I believe we can be the species that my great-great-grandmother saw in us, the species that chooses kindness over cruelty, that builds instead of destroys, that reaches out to help instead of reaching for weapons. Commander Hartley's voice came back through the communicator, and Patricia could hear emotion in it. I will tell them, Dr. Santos. Welcome home. 50 years later. On the anniversary of humanity's acceptance into the Conclave, Ambassador Lyrivan returned to Earth. She found a world that had changed in ways both large and small. The wars that had plagued human history for thousands of years had not stopped entirely, but they had grown fewer and smaller. The technology shared by the Conclave had helped solve problems that had once seemed impossible. Clean energy, advanced medicine, efficient food production. Billions of people who had once lived in poverty now had enough. But more importantly, the spirit of humanity had shifted. Children grew up learning alien languages alongside their own. Schools taught the histories of dozens of civilizations, showing young humans that they were part of something much larger than their single planet. The idea that all intelligent life deserved respect had become as natural as breathing. Lyrivan visited Patricia Santos in a small care facility in a city called Portland. The woman who had saved humanity was 93 years old now, her body failing but her mind still sharp. She sat by a window overlooking a garden filled with flowers from a dozen different worlds. Did we prove them wrong? Patricia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lyrivan took her hand gently. Feeling the emotions flowing through the old woman? Hope. Satisfaction. a peaceful readiness for whatever came next. You proved something more important, Liorvan replied. You proved that species can change. That growth is possible. That the worst moments of your history do not have to define your future. Patricia smiled and closed her eyes. I always knew we could do it, even when others doubted, even when it seemed impossible. I knew that humans had something special in them, something worth believing in. You were right, Liorvan said. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. In the garden, children of 3 different species played together, their laughter mixing with the sound of wind chimes made from alien crystals. 50 more years passed, then 100, then 200. Humanity did not become perfect. They still made mistakes. They still sometimes chose poorly, but they never stopped trying to be better. And slowly, generation by generation, they earned their place among the stars. Fleet Commander Guranash lived long enough to see humans serving alongside Thrakian soldiers in peacekeeping missions. He never admitted publicly that he had been wrong about them, but those who knew him well said he had changed his opinion. The conclave itself changed as well, influenced by the fresh perspective that humans brought to ancient debates. New solutions were found to old problems. New connections were made between species that had been enemies for millions of years, and in classrooms across the galaxy, young beings of every shape and form learned the story of Dr. Patricia Santos, the teacher who had spoken for humanity when their future hung in the balance. They learned about her great-great-grandmother, the nurse who had chosen healing over hatred. They learned that even the smallest species, even the youngest civilization, could change the course of history if they had the courage to try. The stars continued to shine, as they always had, carrying their ancient light across the vast emptiness of space, and somewhere among them, humanity continued its journey. No longer alone, no longer afraid, reaching always toward a future thaw.